Welcome back everyone to my channel, Beefy, and today we're not going to be doing a showdown live. We're actually going to be discussing something that's been on my mind, primarily due to this Pokemon right here. And as you can tell from the title, we are going to be talking about legendary Pokemon that do not use their signature move. And the reason that the reason that this came to my mind was because of Koraidon. Koraidon is one of the best Pokemon in Ubers in Sword and Shield, or not, excuse me, in Scarlet and Violet. Wasn't around in Sword and Shield. Um, Due to setting up Sun, it's super powerful. You could see its stats 135, 135. It's amazing. Sets up Stun, it sets up Photosynthesis. It's powerful. A lot of the times it runs Scarf. And it has a signature move called Collision Course. Collision Course is I believe, base 100 move. So we're going to just go over the team builder. Collision Course is a base 100 move that deals an extra 33% when it's super effective. However, Koraidon does not use this move. And this got me thinking. What other Pokemon, legendary Pokemon specifically, that have legendary moves, how many of them don't use them? Signature moves don't use them. Signature moves are usually super powerful. They're unique to that Pokemon, and they fulfill maybe not a niche, but a role that most other moves can't fulfill. And and normally, generally, a lot of legends use their signature move. There are other um, there are other non-legendaries, whether it be mythicals, not Ultra Beasts, but Paradox Mons or just regular Mons that have signature moves, and some of them don't use their signature moves as well. Some of them do. For example, Thunderclap on Raging Bolt, super used, but then something like Lumina Crash on Espathra doesn't get used for one reason or another. Today, however, we're going to be focusing on legends that don't use their signature moves. And if this video does well, I'll post another video talking about regular Pokemon, or at least non-legends that don't use their signature move. But for now, let's get into these Pokemon that don't use their signature move. What do they use instead, and why do they not use their signature move? So, as you guys can see, or as you guys can guess, we're going to start off with Koraidon. Koraidon, I already explained, has this Collision Course move. 100% accuracy, 100% power, 33% boosted damage when it's super effective. That means when you hit a normal, steel, rock, I'm blanking on if there are other dark. If you hit any of those types, boosted by 33%. So why does Koraidon not use Collision Course, and what does it use instead? Koraidon, or I guess what does it use instead, and why does it not use Collision Course? Koraidon uses Low Kick or Close Combat. As you can see, based on the Smogon analysis on their page, right here, the Choice Scarf sets use Low Kick or Close Combat, and even the Scale Shot sets usually use Low Kick. So, what's the benefit of Low Kick or Close Combat? Low Kick is a move that does damage based on weight and the weight of the opposing Pokemon. And in Ubers, where Koraidon plays a role, most of the Pokemon are very heavy. You have things like Eternatus, the Arceuses, and whatever. Most legends are just Groudon, super heavy guys, and you're going to hit the max base power on Low Kick, which is 120. And it's more consistent than that super effective, because it's much more rare, I should say. It's not rare, but it's more rare to be hitting a mon for super effective damage with Collision Course than it is to just be getting big damage off of just a heavy mon base 120. Similar thing with Close Combat. And Close Combat is always base 120. Whether you want to opt for Low Kick or Close Combat is your choice. Close Combat does lower your defenses. But again, you'd much rather have that consistent damage output rather than that chance of it hitting 133 base power. You really want to get it at just a consistent 120 is better. So that's why Koraidon doesn't use Collision Course. And, it's sad. For all of these Pokemon, I'm going to be talking about their counterparts and just how they're, just quickly to compare them to their counterparts. Miraidon, on the other hand, uses Electro Drift. And Electro Drift has the same properties as Koraidon's Collision Course. But first of all, this is in electric terrain generally because of Hadron Engine. So you already have an additional boost because you get a 30% boost on your attacks in terrain. Second of all, there isn't the same electric. If you look at his electric attacks, we're going to be looking at his special electric attacks, they don't have the same powerful moves that are equivalent to low kick and close combat on Miraidon. He doesn't have a stronger option. He doesn't have a base 120 attack. So if you see it on Specs or Scarf, whatever it is, this is going to be its best option. Like I said, it's already boosted because of terrain, which Collision Course doesn't get that boost because of the sun, because it's not a fire type move. But Electro Drift still gets that boost, and it's the best option that Miraidon has. So that's just the difference between those two. And now, moving on to our next mon, is Lugia. Lugia has a signature move in Aeroblast. Aeroblast, you can see here, it's a move with 5 or 8 PP with PP max, so 8 PP on Showdown, 95 accuracy, 100 base power, and a high critical hit ratio. A good move. No question about it. However, Lugia generally does not run Aeroblast. If we take a look at its page over here, we can see, first of all, they have it over here. They have Aeroblast listed. I have never seen an Aeroblast. That's not true. I have seen Aeroblast. It is less likely to see Aeroblast because of its low PP. Its 8 PP means that, especially with all the pressure mons, or just all the bulky mons, you're going to get wiped of that PP very, very quickly. You'd much rather opt for something with Air Slash. And the reason why you don't care as much about Air Slash having a lower base power than Aeroblast, even by a significant amount, 75 to 25, that's a 33% increase or a 25% decrease, is because usually if you look at these specially defensive and Calm Mind, Lugia is not an offensive mon. If we take a look at his stats, it only has 90 base special attack. You're not going for the kills. You don't worry about it. This is just to get a little chip off. Maybe you're going for a little bit of a stall game, like with this Calm Mindset. Whatever it is, you're not. You can even get a flinch with Air Slash, but it has how many PP does it have? It doesn't say over here, but it doesn't have that same, what is it, 24 PP. It's just not the role that Lugia plays. You're not worried about picking up KOs or sweeping at the end. Maybe with the bulky sweep, but even then, you want your extra PP, and therefore, Aeroblast just doesn't cut it for Lugia. If it was an offensive mon, maybe, but it's not. Now let's compare it to Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh has a similar move in Sacred Fire. Sacred Fire is a physical fire type move, 95 accuracy, 100 base power, same thing, but this has a 50% chance to burn the target. Ho-Oh, I'm not going to pull up the page here, but Ho-Oh does run Sacred Fire. So what's the difference between these two mons? Why does this one run its low PP move while Lugia doesn't? First of all, even though Ho-Oh is primarily a bulky support mon, with Regenerator and that insane 154, 106 defense, SPDEF HP combo, Lugia also has 130 base attack. That means that Sacred Fire, uninvested, still hits really hard. You have 100 base power, plus you have a 50% chance to burn, which is amazing. So Sacred Fire does large chip, and you have an amazing chance for a burn. Therefore, Sacred Fire is often Ho-Oh's best fire type move, especially on the physical side. You're not going to be can I even learn? It could learn Flare Blitz, but you're not going to want that recoil. And again, your damage output is not the main concern. You're often when you're going with Sacred Fire, you're going for that burn, which is amazing. So even as a utility move, Sacred Fire is so even when Ho is running utility, it still is a much better utility move than Lugia's Aeroblast. Okay, moving on to the next Mon. And here we have Giratina. It could be Giratina Origin. Both Giratinas have a signature move in Shadow Force. This has 100 accuracy and 120 base power. But it's similar to Fly or Dig, all those 2-turn moves. Not all of those 2-turn moves, but some of those 2-turn moves where you disappear for the first turn. So you're in a semi-invulnerable state that you can't get hit, and then you hit on the second one. This is similar to Phantom Force, but it's more powerful. And you do sometimes see Phantom Force on, for example, Dragapult. So why doesn't Giratina use Shadow Force? You have 120 attack. This is a 120 base power move. It seems like it would be a good match, even though it's 2-turn. You do see 2-turn moves on something, on certain mons sometimes. First of all, let's talk about this Giratina. Not Giratina Origin, Giratina Altered, whatever it is. This Giratina is, you look at its stats, 120, 120, 150 in HP, defense, and Spadef. It's a defensive mon. You typically see sets like this. It's a support set. So Rest, Defog, Will-O-Wisp, Dragon Tail, you're not looking for attack. You want that extra PP. Your only support. Now, if we even look at Uber's Yu, it's the same thing. Now, even if you are a little bit more offensive, first of all, you're still not running offensive EVs, but you're going to want to status and then use Hex. Because you want that extra PP. Hex is, you have the same defenses, and then Hex is boosted up to 130. So you're still not going to be using Shadow Force. But what about Giratina Origin, which has a more offensive role? This is the big move right here, Poltergeist. First of all, Giratina generally, even in its origin form, still has 150, 100, 100 in its defenses, and it still runs often a utility set, and it can run special or physical. But if it's running physical, it'll run Poltergeist. Poltergeist, if we go over to the team builder right here, I'll show you guys what it's all about. Poltergeist is a 90 accuracy move, 110 base power, and it fails if the target has no held item. Most of the time, if you're not running knockoff teams, you will, or knockoff mon on your team, the opponent will have an item. This means that in the 2 turns that Shadow Force gets, in the load up to, in the disappeared turn when it's like loading up or powering up, and then does damage, Poltergeist, you could have attacked twice. You get more utility. They have the same PP and similar base power in 110, but because you could attack, even though Poltergeist is less, you could attack twice in those turns. And it's not worth it for Giratina Origin or Giratina regular to be running Shadow Force and wasting that turn. It can't run lefties, so it's not like you have an extra turn of lefties because it has to run Gracious Orb. In the regular one, you're not looking for offenses at all. And that is the reason why Giratina does not run Shadow Force. Dialga is in a similar position. Dialga regular and Dialga Origin have a signature move, Roar of Time. Roar of Time is kind of like the Hyper Beam, but for dragons. 90 accuracy, 150 base power, 8 PP, but after you hit, you cannot move. Actually, I'm not even sure. It might even be if you miss. But, so why doesn't Dialga, this is a very powerful move, why doesn't Dialga run Roar of Time? Let's take a look. If you're running a utility set, which Dialga often does, you can take a look at all these sets here. They have mixed utility, specially defensive, and Trick Room Setter. You'll notice that Roar of Time is not on any of them. The cost or the opportunity cost of losing a turn after using Roar of Time is too big to warrant using this move. You have a similar move in Draco Meteor, which is 130 base power. It's weaker, and it lowers a special attack by 2 stages. So that means that the next move you're going to be doing half as much damage, but you're able to attack the next turn. So even if you are running offensive, you can spam. This is a little bit more spammable. This Roar of Time, you can't switch out. You're completely stuck. It gives setup opportunity. It gives just an opportunity to attack you, whatever it is. And this is going to be something that we see in a couple mons in the Kyurems in the future. It's just the not opportunity, but the not even a risk, the result or consequence of losing a turn after that just is too strong. You have other options. You have Draco Meteor, as they have here. You have Dragon Tail. You could even run Dragon Pulse if you're really not trying to. Maybe occasionally. And so this is the same exact set, by the way, as the Dialga Origin, which is more offensive, but you're not going to see it. You're not going to see Roar of Time on this either. You're going to see Draco Meteor. The only time that maybe you would see Roar of Time is on a choiced set, but even then you'd prefer Draco Meteor to Roar of Time. It's just, I'm telling you, this missing out on a turn is devastating. And now if we look at Giratina and Dialga's counterpart in Palkia, what is Palkia's signature move? It's Spatial Rend. Spatial Rend is kind of like a Dragon Arrow Blast. 95 base power, 100 or 95 accuracy, 100 base power, high critical hit ratio. This, although not the most common move on Palkia, especially because you could be using something like Draco Meteor on a choice set. If you're running a choice set on Palkia, as you may see in Uber's Yu, you might see both of these moves. Draco Meteor if you just need a massive hit, and Spatial Rend is if maybe you're running a Scarf or even a Specs, but you just need that consistent output. You can't have your special attack drop by 2 stages every time. Spatial Rend still has a high critical hit ratio, and you're still doing a ton of damage. Spatial Rend is much more spammable. And compared to Lugia, for example, who doesn't run their move, Palkia is much more offensive. And you want to take advantage of that base 150 special attack. And therefore, it's happy to use this low PP, high power move, because that's its role. Now, in the same position that Dialga is in, you have Kyurem Black and Kyurem White. And I'm not even going to bother. Actually, I will. It's not the exact same situation as Roar of Time. I misspoke because it's not a recharge move. But for both Kyurem White and Kyurem Black, they have essentially the same move, with just different status effects: Freeze Shock and Ice Burn. Freeze Shock charges on the first turn, hits on the second, and a 30% chance to paralyze. 90 accuracy, 140 PP. I meant 140 base power, 8 PP. Ice Burn, same exact thing with 30% chance to burn. Both amazing moves, at least they sound like it. However, these mons can run other non-charging moves. So you can run Icicle Spear with loaded dice that hits 100 to 125 base power. I think that this used to run. Oh, excuse me. And you could get off 2 attacks in that time. And the 30% chance to paralyze is really nice. But is it worth loading up a turn, giving the other person a turn to set up? Maybe they have Protect. They Protect on the second turn, and boom, you just wasted a turn. Whatever it is, pivot to Ice Resist. Maybe you want to do it with a Power Herb, but then you can only do it once. Whatever. On a Specs set, you're not going to want that. You want something spammable. You can't spam a 2-turn move. It's like using Solar Beam out of Sun. You almost never see it. Exact same situation with Kyurem White. Kyurem White's a special attacker, though, so it has even better options than Kyurem Black, because you have Ice Beam, you have Blizzard, whatever it is. Same exact thing, though, on a choice set. You can't have these 2-turn moves on choice sets, and these are offensive mons. Even on setup. On a setup, you're not going to want to waste a turn attacking. Occasionally, I guess you could see it with Power Herb, but these mons are going to opt for something else. And then Kyurem regular does not have a signature move, and it does just fine for itself. Moving on to the last Uber before we talk about some other mons is Regieleki. Regieleki has a signature move in Thunder Cage. Thunder Cage traps the opponent and damages it for 4 to 5 turns. It's kind of like Magma Storm, Fire Spin, whatever you want to do it. 90 accuracy, 80 base power, 24 PP. Sounds like a solid move. 90 accuracy really hurts it. 80 base power is not bad, especially because you're getting residual damage. So why doesn't Regieleki use this? And if we go over to Regieleki's page, and we take a look at its stats, you have this 200 base speed, 100 in each attacking stat, and then you have base 50 defenses with base 80 HP. And if you look at its role that it has in Uber's UU, because it's not really used in Uber, in regular Ubers, you have dual screens, and then you have offensive utility, which is pretty much just, I mean, it's a pivot, but it's offensive. And you could tell by looking at this EVs too, it's max. The fact of the matter is that Regieleki is far too frail to be running a trapping move. When you have something like, Heatran, that's a bulky-ass Pokemon. So if you throw off a Magma Storm, you trap the opponent, you're getting residual damage, maybe you run Protect, maybe you're doing Earth Power, or even just Magma Storm to get extra chip, but you could take on other hits in the meantime. You could Taunt, and you could wear those Pokemon down. Regieleki does not have the same, not utility, but qualities that Heatran has. It's pure electric, so it doesn't have those nice resists that Heatran has, and its defenses, it's far too frail to take advantage of a trapping residual move, which is much better on a stronger, not a stronger, but a bulkier Pokemon. Regieleki is an attacker. It's a fast attacker. It got banned from OU in Quick Band. I think it was like the fastest ban ever because it hits hard and it's the fastest Pokemon in the field at all times. Unless you have Scarf or Booster, whatever it is. But it's generally the fastest Pokemon in the field. With Terra Ice, a Terra Blast, you have that amazing Bolt Beam coverage, especially with Transistor. Transistor even got nerfed. But one thing that it's not doing, if it's spinning, if it's exploding even, if it screens, one thing it's not doing is it's not being this bulky trapper utility mon. It's not. And it's just unable to take advantage of Thunder Cage. You'd much rather, with Regieleki, hit fast, get out of there with Volt Switch, maybe you throw Specs on it, and you hit like a truck with Thunderbolts, Thunders and Rain maybe, Terra Blast, whatever it is, but you're never going to be running Thunder Cage. Now, if you take a look at its counterpart, Regidrago has a move called Dragon Energy. Now, Dragon Energy is a very curious move. It's like Eruption, but Dragon type. Now, Regidrago is not nearly as powerful as Regieleki is. So you'll see this down in whatever UU, RU, NU, something like that. But Regidrago does make use of its signature move. Regidrago, one way that I found a lot of success with Dragon Energy is with a Choice Scarf set. In the lower tiers, you have a lot of slower mons. You throw a Choice Scarf on here. I think he's base 80 speed. And base 100 special attacks, not amazing. But with Dragon's Maw, which was not nerfed. So while Transistor is 1.3 and this is 1.5, Transistor got nerfed to 1.3 multiplier, Dragon's Maw is still 1.5. So with this 150 base power move at max health, Um, and a choice scarf, if they don't have a fairy type on the team, you're blowing everything away. Nothing is really switching in. Even in choice scarf, this thing hits like its specs. Um, I guess if you wanted to, you could run it with webs too, and even run a specs. And there's literally, I mean, again, other than a fairy, nothing's coming in on this. But this Dragon Energy Regidrago, even it might not be its most popular set, it absolutely makes use of it. Moving on to the next Pokemon that we're going to be talking about is Hoopa, regular Hoopa. Hoopa's signature move is Hyperspace Hole. Hyperspace Hole is a psychic special type move that cannot miss with 80 base power, and it goes through Protect. You would think that Hoopa might make use of this. That sounds like a good move. However, it's not too hard to think about. But if you take a look at what we got going on over here on its Smogon page, Shadow Ball, and Psyshock, and here you have Psychic. Here, Nasty Plot, you have Psyshock. Throat Spray, you have Psychic Noise. No matter what, you're not going to see Hyperspace Hole used on Hoopa. And why is that? First of all, the going through the Protect aspect is not so powerful in singles because Protect is much it's used much less often than in VGC, and you don't see Protect as often, so it holds less utility. And the fact that it can't miss, well, that's not amazing in singles either, because because evasion moves are banned and things like Snow Cloak are banned, and you'll very rarely have someone with boosted evasion unless you have a contrary guy that switches in on defog. Evasion is normally at 100%, so your 100% accurate moves are gonna hit 99% of the time. So it's just not that good of a move. So it would rather opt for Psychic, which is more power, or for Psyshock, which is the same base power but targets the defense instead of Spadef doing massive damage on things like Blissey or Clodsire. In comparison, Hoopa Unbound, its other form, does make use of Hyperspace Fury. Hyperspace Fury cannot miss either, breaks the sub, but it's 100 base power physical dark move. It not breaks sub, breaks through Protect, and it lowers the defense by 1. So this does have a little, it's increased in base power, which is good. It has it lowers the defense by 1, which is a little bit of a drawback to this move, but the fact that it's increased base power and the fact that it's stronger than any other physical dark move or any other dark move that Hoopa can learn is a big plus. There's no equivalent to Psychic as there was for Hyperspace Hole, where you have a stronger base power move. The only other physical dark move that Hoopa's going to run instead of this is Knockoff, which is an amazing move, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. Hyperspace Fury, however, still is seen on a lot of choice sets. It's also seen on Trick Room, which is because of Magician, where you steal the item. You run it with Eject Pack, and then you hit, and then it's pretty much a U-turn. You lower your defense, Eject Pack sends you out, so it's like this amazing dark type U-turn for 1 turn, and then when you come back in, you steal the item next time you attack someone. You steal their item. And Hyperspace Fury does have, it's definitely a niche, but it's not even that crazy of a niche. But you will absolutely see Hyperspace Fury much more often than you'll see Hyperspace Hole. Getting to our last mon is Latias. Again, not an Uber Pokemon. And Latias has the signature move Mist Ball, which is 100 accuracy, 95 base power, which is a huge buff. And a 50% chance to lower the special attack of the target. If we go to Latias's page, we can see how Latias is used. You either have utility, they have here Roost, Thunderwave, and then Psychic or Psyshock, and then your third move. Oh, I'm sorry, that's National Dex. Excuse me, let me go to OU. So they only have one set here, which is Calm Mind. This is the stored power setup. And here you'll opt for your Psychic move is going to be stored power. You're never going to be running, and even if you don't see stored power, the only other thing you'll see is Psyshock for things like Blissey. You're not going to see Mist Ball because that's primarily for this. I mean, this is a bulky Pokemon, and that's often what its role is, except it's not meant. Or the benefit of lowering the special attack and then sponging that hit better is outclassed by Psyshock, which is gonna get you a KO on Blissey, or Stored Power, which beats Unaware Mons, or just sweeps other teams once with an Agility and a Calm Mind. Mist Ball just doesn't have a role on Latias' sets. Oh, you say, what about maybe a choice set? Latios is really only running Choice Scarf because if you're going to go specs, you may as well go Latios, which hits harder. And on Choice Scarf sets, you'll see usually only one. You'll see like Healing Wish, maybe Trick, Defog, at least back in the day. Before, I don't think it gets Defog anymore. And you'll see Psychic or Psyshock. You won't see Mist Ball because you're using it very late game to pick off very low health Mons, or you're using it as support. Mist Ball just, again, doesn't have a role, even though it got that massive boost in power from, I believe it was 70 to 95. There is no role for Mist Ball on Latias' sets. Again, also having APP is not great if you really want to be bulky with Roost and a full support set. Regardless, APP, similar to Lugia, is just not cutting it for a bulky Mon. In comparison, Latios has Luster Purge, which is the same move, except it has a 50% chance to lower the special defense. This is much better on Latios, and this is the go-to Psychic move for Latios. You'll see it often on Choice Scarf or Choice Spec sets, especially since it used to not run it. It used to be when it was 70 power, it just wasn't strong enough. You'd much rather get a super strong hit off, especially with specs, with Psychic or Psyshock, and it wasn't worth it to have that special defense. Now, you see this with this boost, it's even stronger than Psychic, and it has a chance to lower the SPDF, so it could even theoretically beat something like Blissey 1v1. You keep on lowering that SPDF, you keep on doing more and more damage. And on Choice Scarf sets, it's great because things can't just recover you off because you're lowering their SPDF. So things like Clodsire get blown. I mean, it's a Psychic type, but let's say Terra's, either way, it's getting blown away. Things like Dondozo. It's not taking it anyways. Regardless, Luster Purge on this offensive Mon, the SPDF drop benefits Latios much more than the Spatak drops benefit Latias. And there's almost no reason to not use Luster Purge on Latios, while there is almost no reason to use Mist Ball on Latias. And that's it. That's all the legendary Mons that I was able to think of off the top of my head that do not use their signature move. Like I said at the beginning of the video, if this video gets a bunch of views, then I'll post one with regular Mons that don't use their signature moves. Maybe I'll make another couple of videos like this. Let me know if you like this style of video, me talking and me discussing Pokemon a little bit instead of just a showdown live. Let me know in the comments below if there's any Mons that I forgot, or any other points that I missed out on. And yeah, just let me know what other type of videos you'd like, and make sure to leave a like, and peace out.